Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Uchendu. I am the Refugee Capacity Builder for Samaritas Refugee Youth Services. And today I am just so happy to be able to sit down and have a conversation, a real casual and in-depth conversation with one of the foster care parents with Samaritas. His name is Bryan Reinhardt. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Weinert.
Bryan Reinhardt. And so we're just going to have a really great in-depth conversation and really just going to ask Bryan what his experience has been like being a foster care parent, and just be able to get to know him a little bit more and what this process has been like for him, so that people can be able to know what that's like for those who are maybe considering starting this process for yourselves as well and your family. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Bryan, first of all, thank you so much for just taking the time and for your willingness to sit down with us and just have a casual conversation.
Hey, you're very welcome.
About your experience. I remember kind of like the first time I'm meeting you on Zoom, in kind of the story of hearing you and hearing Diego, and really that was just such a moving, I think, testimony that you shared and that Diego shared as well. And really, one of the really first questions that I really wanted to ask you was, if you can kind of think back of this entire process and how it all started. What was that initial moment like? First of all, I guess, are you married?
Yes.
You and your wife together live
Yep.
together and so on. So you and your wife, what was that initial moment like when you guys were sitting together maybe, and really it dawned on you like, we really feel like fostering is the right way to go? What was that like?
Yeah. We have 3 grown daughters.
Yeah.
And had recently become empty nesters. They had all moved out, all gotten married. And we had an upstairs that was unused. And we had heard a presentation by Samaritas, I think it was at our local church, about the refugee foster care program. And of course, had been reading and seeing a lot in the news as well about the refugee crisis around the world.
Yeah.
At that time, it was primarily Syria, I think. There's an ongoing situation in Central America, Syria, some African countries. And we just decided, this is we're at a place in our life where this now becomes possible. We really enjoyed raising our own children, now have 5 grandchildren. And this just seemed like a really good fit for us. The time was right. We both agreed that this would be a really worthwhile step to take. And, one of the quotes that I've always resonated with, I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect that the best way to change the world is one person at a time, one human being at a time.
That's good.
And so the idea of fostering just fits so well into that kind of worldview, right? We can spend a lot of time with organizations and causes, and not that those things aren't useful and important, but there's nothing like, that kind of intimate connection with another human being. Yeah. And so that's really what kind of motivated us to get into the program and take it from there. And because we had the connection with Samaritas, we kind of knew where to start.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of tells us that we're doing good work with our outreach with churches, being that's where you came in.
Indeed.
So that's note to ourselves at Samaritas that we are doing good there, and that's effectual.
Yes.
So, you mentioned that it was this. You said, this was a time, the situation in the news and going on, the situation going on in Syria had been going on. So how many years ago was this kind of when this process really first started?
Yeah, I'd say probably about 2014, 2015.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And then we ended up getting Diego in the summer of 2016.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was a year and a half, and there was a lot of vetting involved in the foster care process. Right. And it is virtually the same vetting, whether you're doing domestic foster care or, in this case, refugee foster care.
Right.
There are a lot of steps involved, and so for
Right.
people who are interested, just know it's going to take some time.
Right.
There is no stone left unturned.
Right.
To the credit of Samaritas and to the state, to really ensure that the people, the families that are taking in children are responsible and ready to take on the
Right.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And so we knew that. We were patient about it. And boy, it turned out to be a worthwhile process. And we'll get into more into that.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
there was some work involved early on. A lot of paperwork, a lot of interviews. Like I say, we needed to provide references, for our character.
Yeah.
They actually, Samaritas, actually had to interview our own children. I'm trying to think if there were others that were interviewed. Maybe some of those references also were interviewed as well. We had to provide financial information.
Right.
So it's all out there.
It's pretty in depth.
There
isn't it?
there are no secrets.
Yeah, that's good.
I think we had a physical examination.
Yeah.
All the prescription medications we were taking. It was just, you are vetted.
Wow.
So I think for potential families to just know that will happen, and there's a good reason that happens.
Yeah.
And we knew that, and we're patient with the process, and it turned out really well.
Well, yeah, that's actually, we find that one of the frequently asked questions is, what is that licensing process like?
Yeah.
And it's obviously anytime you're dealing with the government, there's not gonna be any stone unturned, and so on and so forth. So yeah, for sure, I'm happy that you definitely touched on that, because that is definitely one of the frequently asked questions that many people have. And so you obviously kind of you touched on how the circumstances that kind of led to you and your wife wanting to get into fostering, but why specifically refugee foster care rather than, say, domestic foster care?
I think it was because the whole refugee issue had really become important, I think, as a national issue.
Yeah.
And we heard specifically the presentation about refugee foster care and the real need for refugee foster care, and just being aware of what conditions there were in the larger world. It just seemed like a good fit for us.
Yeah.
We hadn't really, considered domestic foster care at any point earlier in our lives. I think because we were busy raising our own children.
Right.
And it's a different animal insofar as, the general outcome that's desired for domestic foster care is to reunite children with their families, if at all possible.
Right, yeah.
In the case of refugee foster care, that was highly unlikely.
Yes. Yep.
And so you also knew that there was the potential of a much longer term relationship as a result of the experience. And in that way, it made it a little easier too, because you didn't have to navigate or wonder about how those family dynamics were going to play in terms of the outcome for the child. That we could be pretty confident that there would be a long-term relationship with refugee foster care. And many of the children are able to still have connections with their family back home. Not always. Sometimes civil war or other circumstances take away that opportunity, or there's loss and tragedy associated with those circumstances. But in many cases, for whatever reason, the children, were separated from their parents. Parents are still back in their home country. And so I think for us, too, that was important. And that's worked out nicely with Diego, that he's been able to keep a relationship with his family back home. Not initially, I think, not in those early months when he was in a detention facility, but eventually that he was able to keep that relationship going. So for us, it's comforting to know that he always has that biological family to connect with as well. And for us, and we can get into this more too, that Diego really became a part of our family, and it's a true success story for us. And we do know, and we celebrate often that how well it's worked out for us. Not every foster placement works out this well, and I think that's just another,
Right. Yeah.
cautionary tale. Depending on the circumstances, the personality of the family, of the child, of what the situation is.
Right.
What kind of trauma is involved. There's so many factors that play into the success or the long-term nature of a relationship or not. But for us with Diego, we really hit gold because here's a kid who just has a really caring heart. He took to us very quickly. I think he has always appreciated us and what we were doing for him.
Yeah.
I think he understood what was involved, and that's always been very powerful. And I remember he had been here for several months, and it was around this very kitchen table, and I apologize if I'm going to tear up with it. This kid is at this point, I don't know, 16, 15.
Okay.
And he says one time at supper time with us, with my wife and I, something to the effect of, "I want you to know that I will always be here for you." That's a kid. That's a high school kid.
Incredible.
Who kind of made that statement to us at that time. And boy, I'll tell you what, that is powerful.
It's incredible.
And he has sure lived up to that. And he has truly become a member of our family, not just for my wife and I, but for our children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
He is a member of the family now.
That's incredible. Yeah.
We have been really blessed. But this can happen.
Yeah. I'm just so happy that you touched on him being a member of your family.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things that I really wanted to know too. Is kind of like how it was like to kind of integrate him within your already established family dynamic. You have kids, you have children already, you're married. How was that? Was it a seamless transition, or was it kind of like curves that you had to pass by and so on and so forth?
I'd say language issues, barriers were one of the early hurdles to get over. He spoke virtually no English, and we spoke virtually no Spanish. So a lot of Google Translate and sign language. Sports were a good connector for Diego and I right from the very beginning. Shooting hoops,
for sure.
Kicking the soccer ball around. Just being outdoors together. We have a cabin up north. He took to that immediately. Just being outdoors. Sometimes there are those non-language-based communications that music. We were able to teach him some games early on that weren't too complicated, and he took to those. He's a quick learner, and that helped a lot too. So I think we really immersed him early. We got him some tutoring. Samaritas is very helpful, in helping us find tutors. English language, and then he within a month and a half of his arrival, he was going to an American high school. And I think he had a 4th or 5th grade education equivalent in Guatemala when he left, and then started at an American high school a month and a half after his arrival here in Michigan.
Wow!
With very little English. And he graduated within 4 years.
Incredible.
Honor student, had a better than a B average. He worked. And I will say my wife worked really hard too in getting him the tutoring he needed, and really kept the pressure on him to take his studies seriously. And I think made it clear to him that having a high school diploma is really the key to success here in America.
That's incredible.
And that some of this is going to be tough, but you stick with it because it'll have a big payoff for you.
Absolutely.
So that extra support for tutoring really helped. We're fortunate here in Ann Arbor as well to have a really good ESL program at our local high school, and one woman in particular who headed that program that really took to Diego.
Yeah.
And was just there for him throughout his college or his high school years, and really supported him and helped him through. And there were other kids there in the program as well that English was very new to them. Some of the kids in that program had been here in the United States for a while, and English was truly a second language. Yeah. But for Diego and some of the other kids, English was a non-existent language. So Diego had Spanish and more regional dialect or language, Quiche, that he knew.
Yeah, so from his country,
from his home country, but English he had very little exposure to English. But really,
he picked it up pretty quickly.
He did, and I think one of the things that we did that was really helpful was just watching movies together.
Okay,
that was another great connector. You watch some action movies together.
Yeah,
right. The talking's part of it, but most of it's just the fun of the action, right?
Yeah.
So it's something he could relate to, that we could relate to, but there was English in it as well. Okay. And so early on, I think we did Spanish subtitles, and then I think we might have done English subtitles, and then he just started to get the language well enough that he understood the basics of what was happening.
Yeah. It's funny because as you're you're talking about how quick he picked up English. I'm over here trying to learn Spanish. I've been at it for too long, and I feel like he's learned it so quickly. But then again, you're engrossed within the English country.
Yes, and I think he kind of recognizes I'm going to need this to survive. And I think in some ways, at first we wondered, this placement of this Spanish-speaking kid with this American family that virtually did not speak any Spanish, but I think that ended up being a
good thing,
a positive, a net, because it forced him
for sure
to accommodate and to learn English. I think it could have been too easy otherwise.
Yeah, right.
For our sake and his, right? That let's just go back to the default of Spanish. That's how we understand each other. Right. We didn't have that luxury here, so we and he particularly had to learn English. And same with by and large, high school was pretty much English
for sure.
They tried to accommodate and appreciate his Spanish background, but
right.
But English is the language.
Yeah,
so
right.
he
absolutely
he adapted to that and made the best of it.
Yeah, no. I think that one of the questions that at times people have is another one of the frequently asked questions is how is that like, circumventing that language barrier?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of these children don't know English. Some do know English coming in, whether it be a small amount of English or a lot of English. But it's good to know that it's learnable, for especially with Diego. He seemed like he picked it up really quickly. He had the ESL. There are resources that are available and accessible to help circumvent that barrier and so on and so forth. So basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, you leveraged Google Translate. You there was also the ESL class at school as well. Was there anything else that kind of you guys leveraged?
Well, we found some good tutors that really helped a lot. Okay. And like I say, otherwise, just using the language, around the household.
Yeah.
I think really helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and just understanding that he needed as much exposure as possible. So we talked to him a lot. The other members of our family, a couple know Spanish a little bit. So they'd kind of play around with it. I played around with it a little bit with him, and I think he got a big kick out of me trying to pronounce words. So I think it gave him some comfort to see this older American man that was doing far worse with Spanish than what he was doing with learning English.
Okay, so last question to ask you. I know you mentioned before, when we were talking, you mentioned that you studied political science from the University of Michigan, by the way. So, there's a lot of, what we do with refugee foster care here at Samaritas is very influenced by legislation and policy. And so, I know that, just kind of through our brief conversation, it seems to me that there's been like a symbiotic type of relationship between you and Diego, whereby not only has he been able to benefit from his relationship with you, but you and your family have also been able to benefit from your relationship with him. And for people who might pay attention a lot to the news, obviously, and we all know the misinformation that sometimes can come out of that. Can you talk to why is it important to help refugees and to serve this specific demographic of people? Why should we do this, and how has it, from your perspective as the foster care parent, been beneficial for you, and not just from his perspective?
Yeah. I mean, for us, we gained a family member. For me, I gained a son.
That's good.
I have 3 daughters. Diego became my son. Mm-hmm. And I think the relationship is of that depth and quality. We had high hopes going in, but we had no idea that it would be as deep and as meaningful as it has been. Mm-hmm. Life-changing for us in a very positive way. Yeah. We initially got into it because we were aware of the, what was happening around the world and the tragedies around the world, and the opportunity for us to make that difference. Public policy does matter. Legislation does matter.
Yeah.
But within that framework, it really requires families, couples, individuals who are willing to take somebody into their home that is actually going to make it work, right? I mean, even if the United States has more open policies about accepting immigrants and refugees, if there aren't placements for those immigrants and refugees, we got a problem. Right. That these children, these families can't stay in detention facilities forever, that's no good for anybody. So you need that next level of community members, of people of faith, of people of goodwill, who want to be that change. And I think for us that has really played out here in this very personal way, and it's made us so much more aware of what's happening now in Guatemala, in Diego's situation, and also more aware of what's happening in other countries of the world as well. It has piqued an ongoing interest and a commitment to be aware of what's happening, and to the extent that we can help to spread that message to people in our circle. That's good. Fantastic. That's and awesome. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that Diego has become this incredible personification of what a refugee is, what an immigrant is, what the potential is. And you give a person half a chance, and they'll set the world on fire. I mean, he is just doing, for his young age, he's in his early 20s now, and he's doing amazing things. Yeah. He's impacted our neighborhood. He's impacted our church community. He's impacted his work setting. Just a remarkable witness. Yeah. So that to me gives me great hope for the future, and that even people who are more fearful or closed or skeptical, they meet the Diegos from around the world. Yeah. It's going to start changing their perception and their openness to welcome the stranger in a bigger way.
Amen. That's good. Yeah. I love how grassroots that feels. You know, like we are the hands and the feet. It's us. It's up to us. It's up to the everyday, regular, casual people to do the work. Yes. To make a difference.
Yeah, and sometimes it's easy to, to just voice the blame on the government or those people or whatever. It's like, yes, there's some of that, but we can also, just by our own personal witness and our personal commitment, can make a difference too.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for your time and your story and your experience and just your transparency. And I know this is gonna be impactful to a lot of people who's gonna hear this. So thank you again so much. Yeah. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Yeah. Well, everybody, you've heard the story of Bryan and how his experience has been with the foster care process. I hope this has been a blessing to you. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and share this video so a lot of people can hear what it's like to be a foster care parent, and so we can be able to continue to spread this message and help this population that is in need. So thank you all. Have a good day.